My younger sister was going through a terrible divorce. Her husband had cheated on her, left her broken, angry, and spiraling. Naturally, I took her in. I wanted to be there for her. She's my little sister. I helped with legal costs, gave her a place to stay, and did everything I could to help her rebuild. I never expected what came next. One night, she broke down in tears and told me that my husband had been inappropriate with her. At first, I couldn't even comprehend what I was hearing. She said it started as lingering touches, uncomfortable stares, subtle comments when I wasn't around. Then, she claimed he touched her waist in the kitchen, told her things about how I didn't appreciate him. She said she'd kept quiet not to ruin my marriage, but she couldn't take it anymore. I was in shock. We'd been together for over a decade. He had never once made me feel unsafe, never shown even a hint of that kind of behavior. But she was my sister. She was vulnerable, and I trusted her. I confronted him that same night. He was stunned, genuinely confused and hurt. He kept saying over and over that it wasn't true. He swore he never touched her, never said those things. He begged me to believe him. He cried. He tried to explain, to prove his innocence, but I had already chosen a side. No one believed him, not me, not our family, not our friends. Everyone took my side and saw him as a disgusting predator. Within weeks, he lost his job due to whispers and rumors. Friends ghosted him. Even people he had known for years turned their backs. I served him divorce papers. I got the house, the car, most of the savings. I told myself he deserved it. He moved out quietly, with barely anything to his name, and vanished into a small apartment across town. I told everyone the truth, my truth, and they all stood behind me. The strong woman protecting her sister, the hero in the story. And then, the truth came out. In the worst possible way. A few weeks ago, we had a family gathering. A mix of close friends, relatives, and my parents were there. My sister got drunk, really drunk. She started crying, lashing out, and then she said it. "You think your marriage was so perfect? He never wanted me. He never touched me. I just wanted you to feel what I felt. To lose what I lost. You believed me so fast, that's on you too." The entire room went silent. Everyone heard it. Friends, cousins, aunts, my parents. My world collapsed right there in front of everyone. People started yelling. My mom screamed at her. My dad couldn't even speak. Some people walked out. I did too. I haven't spoken to her since. She admitted it. She lied. She ruined an innocent man's life, and I helped her do it, willingly. I want to reach out to him more than anything, but I'm afraid. I don't know what I would even say. What words could ever make this right? My parents want to reach out too, but they're afraid just like me. We all stood by the lie. We helped bury him with it. I am full of guilt. It eats at me every day now. I destroyed someone who loved me. I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. I didn't look for truth. I looked for a villain, and I made him wear that mask. Now he's alone, disgraced and broken, and I'm left here with everything knowing I never deserved it. I don't know how to make things right. I'll return anything, sign anything, say anything, but none of it will undo the damage I caused. I live with this weight every single day, and I don't know if it will ever lift. If somehow he ever reads this, I'm sorry, I see it now. All of it. I just wish I had seen you, the real you, before it was too late. Update 1. Since getting sober, my sister has been trying to backtrack and admit she lied, but by then, the damage was already done. The moment her confession became known, words spread like wildfire, and the backlash was immediate and harsh. Everyone was furious, not only at her for the betrayal and deception, but also at me for believing her without hesitation. It felt like I was being judged just as harshly as she was. Our closest friends, people I once considered family, cut ties with us. Some relatives distanced themselves too. The fallout wasn't just emotional. It uprooted my entire social world. The hardest part is thinking about my husband. He used to have a high-paying corporate job, a career he was proud of and worked so hard to build. But after all of this, everything collapsed around him. The man who once had a stable, successful life is now reduced to working nights as a cleaner in an office building, doing the kind of work he never imagined he'd do. And I heard he drinks every morning, trying to drown the pain and humiliation. The truth is, my sister left my husband destitute, and I helped her. He lost his job, his friends, his reputation, and most importantly, his dignity. The man I once loved and trusted has been completely shattered by the lies she told. I finally found the courage to confess everything to my lawyer. I told her I wanted to give back everything: the house, the car, the money. I begged her to help me seek forgiveness and do whatever I could to make this right. I also told her I wanted to sue my sister for the damage she caused. She looked at me with a mixture of sadness and understanding and promised to do everything in her power to help. When my parents found out about my plan to take legal action against my sister, they were horrified and begged me not to go through with it. They're terrified it would rip the family apart, and I can't say I blame them. But after everything that's happened, I feel like I have no choice. I'm determined to do what's right, even if it means going against the people I love. In a moment of desperation, I reached out to my husband's brother, hoping for some kind of understanding or maybe even forgiveness. But instead of support, I was met with anger and bitterness. He cursed me out, calling me names and blaming me for destroying his brother's life, his brother who had loved me deeply before this nightmare began. And then he slammed the phone down. It broke me in ways I didn't know were possible. Right now I'm lost and broken. Every day I'm consumed by guilt and regret. I don't know how to undo what's been done or if it's even possible to make things right again. All I can do is try, and hope somehow that someday, forgiveness might be possible. Update 2. Out of desperation, I finally tracked down the building where my husband was working. I barely recognized him. He'd completely changed. He had lost a lot of weight. His face was gaunt, and a small, unkempt beard shadowed his jaw. His eyes, they were haunted, hollow like someone carrying a pain too heavy to bear. It was around 6 p.m. when I found him. He was mopping the lobby floor, talking quietly with the security guard, a heavy-set man who seemed patient and kind. My husband managed a weak smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I approached him slowly, my heart pounding. I called out his name, my voice trembling, and asked if we could talk. The look on his face was pure despair. He stopped mopping and stared at me. Then, in a voice cracked with pain, he asked, "What more do you want? Do you want what's left in my wallet?" He pulled it out with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "Do you want my plasma? For money?" He was breaking down, and I could barely speak. I told him all I wanted was to talk. That's when he broke completely, and people around us could see it. His voice trembled as he said he just wanted a chance to clear his name to prove his innocence. He cried openly as he told me how I had so easily believed my sister's lies over him, her own husband. He screamed in anguish that he never gave me a reason to turn my back on him, never gave me a reason to believe those lies or to turn everyone against him, that she took everything from him, even his dignity. He shouted how much he loved me, how he still loved me despite everything. The security guard gently stepped in, guiding him away, and asked me to leave. As I was walking out, the guard looked at me with sadness in his eyes. "He loved you," he said quietly. "He told stories about you all the time. The happy moments." That moment shattered me. I realized what I'd lost and how much I'd hurt someone who still cared so deeply. Update 3. It finally happened. I snapped. My sister and I got into a physical fight, full on screaming, clawing, pushing. It was ugly and years overdue. Our parents and some relatives had to pull us apart. We were both crying, shouting over each other, but I didn't hold back this time. She screamed that she hated how happy I was, how perfect my life looked while hers crumbled. She said she wanted me to feel the pain she felt to suffer like she did. That's why she did it. That's why she lied. Hearing her say it out loud in front of everyone didn't give me any closure. It just deepened the pit inside me. The betrayal ran deeper than I thought possible. Later, a few of our mutual friends came to see me. They were visibly shaken and ashamed. They told me they had tried to visit my husband at his building. They wanted to talk, to apologize, maybe find some kind of resolution, but the same security guard who saw everything when I went, he stepped in again. They said he calmly asked what they needed from my husband. When they couldn't give him an answer beyond, "We want to talk," he told them to leave. When they raised their voices, tried to insist, he didn't budge. One of them said he told them, "Where were you when he needed someone to listen? You abandoned him when all he did was love and trust you. What makes you think he wants your pity now?" They said something changed in the air in that moment. They tried to push past him, thought they could still make it right, but he stood his ground. They felt fear. More security came along with a few of the building staff, and they were asked to leave. Embarrassed and humiliated, they did. One of them broke down while telling me this. What kind of friends were we? We didn't even let him speak. I didn't have the heart to answer. Right now, I'm doing the only thing I can do. I'm working to undo the material damage. I'm working with my lawyer to transfer the house back to his name. The money I took in the divorce? Every cent will go back. The car too. I don't care if it leaves me with nothing. It's the least I can do after everything I took from him. Not just the things, but his pride, his identity, his peace. I know none of this can undo the betrayal. I know I may never be forgiven, but I have to try even if it's only to give him some of the life back that I helped destroy. Update 4. Today I found what was left of our wedding album. It was almost completely burned, the edges curled and blackened, the photos warped and faded by heat. I had forgotten about it until I stumbled across the old metal bucket in the garage. It was still there, untouched since that night. That horrible, ignorant, cruel night. The night the divorce was finalized, I didn't mourn. I didn't even reflect. Instead, I celebrated. My sister and I, along with a few friends, drank and laughed like I had been freed from something like I had won. In my arrogance, I threw our wedding album into that bucket, poured alcohol on it, and lit it on fire. It felt symbolic at the time, burning the past, torching the memories. Now I realize I was destroying the last proof that something beautiful once existed. I sat on the cold floor of the garage, pulling apart what pieces I could. A scorched photo of us smiling during our first dance. His hand holding mine, his eyes so full of life, of hope. Another photo, half gone, of us cutting the cake. That happiness feels like it belonged to someone else. I remembered how hard he fought in court, how he begged everyone to listen, how desperate he was to clear his name. But no one believed him. Everyone saw him as a monster. And I let them. I led them. I'll never forget the moment I saw the light leave his eyes, the exact moment he realized no one was coming to save him. It was in that courtroom when the judgment was read, and the weight of everything landed on his shoulders. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just faded. Like the person he was no longer had a place in this world. My mother found me crying in the garage today, sitting in front of that rusted bucket, holding what was left of our wedding in my hands. She didn't say anything. She just sat beside me, crying too. As if the universe wasn't done yet, I received a certified letter this afternoon. It was from a lawyer named Steve. He represents him. He wants to talk about the situation. To meet. The letter was polite, formal, but I felt the weight of it immediately. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if it's forgiveness or confrontation or something else entirely, but I agreed to meet. I have to. Whatever comes next, I owe it to him to face it, no matter how painful. Update 5. The day finally came. I went with my lawyer to Steve's firm, the one who sent the letter. I felt like my insides were folding in on themselves. I hadn't slept the night before. I kept going over what I'd say if I saw him, how I'd apologize, how I'd try to make it right, even though I knew it could never be enough. We sat in the lobby, the silence between me and my lawyer thick with tension. Then I noticed someone sitting a few chairs away. Dressed well, quiet, their head slightly down, reading something. I couldn't see his face clearly, but there was something familiar. A presence I hadn't felt in a long time. But before I could make sense of it, we were called in. Steve was the only one in the room. Late 20s, sharp suit, every word and movement controlled. He carried an aura that was both professional and intimidating. No warmth. No small talk beyond what politeness demanded. We sat down. My lawyer explained we were there to return everything: the house, the money, the car. She made it clear there was no catch. Steve paused, then looked straight at us and asked, "What's the angle?" Ignoring my early question about where my husband was. "There's no angle," my lawyer said firmly. "She just wants to return what rightfully belonged to her husband." Steve corrected her without hesitation. "Ex-husband." That word hit me like a cold slap. It was so final, so heavy. He agreed to the terms, asked for the paperwork, and we handed it over. I finally worked up the nerve and asked again quietly but firmly where my ex-husband was. I didn't care if it made me look desperate. I was desperate. Steve looked at me for a long second, like he was debating whether to tell me off or show some restraint. Then he said coolly, "You're not his wife anymore. You don't have the right to ask about his well-being, or his medical condition, or anything else." The way he said it, sharp, almost cold, cut deep. I could feel my throat tighten. I begged. I said I just wanted a meeting, just to speak to him one last time. Steve finally exhaled and said, "I'll look into it." That was all. The meeting ended shortly after. I left the office feeling drained, empty. Like all I'd done was stir dust and pain that had already settled in. As for my sister, she's lost her mind. She's been blowing up social media, ranting about how everyone has turned against her, calling people traitors, liars, snakes. But no one's buying it anymore. The comments are brutal. People know the truth now. They've seen the damage she caused, and she can't twist the narrative back in her favor. My parents, they're different now too. My mother was quietly asked to step down as a church member. The news had spread farther than we thought. My father hasn't said much. He spends his time in the garage now, silently working on old furniture or engines. It's his way of coping, I think. We barely talk anymore. The shame hangs over the entire household like a fog. As for me, I'm trying to take the next step. I'm planning to visit security guard from last time, the one who stood by my husband, who saw his pain firsthand. Maybe he'll be willing to talk. Maybe he'll give me some insight into the man I once knew and the life I helped destroy. Update 6. I found myself back at the building again today. The security guard was outside, sitting quietly, looking at something in his hands. It looked like a worn-out photo. When he noticed me watching, he turned sharply and asked as if he already knew why I was there. "What do you want?" He moved faster than I expected for someone his size, but I didn't care. I swallowed my nerves and asked if he could help me talk to my husband. He sighed, his eyes tired and wary. "You've done enough damage already," he said quietly, then told me to leave, but I refused. I told him he'd have to arrest me for trespassing. For a long moment, he stared at me the same way Steve did. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "Hold on." He pulled out his phone and made a call. After a few minutes of quiet conversation, he looked up and told me to follow him. I didn't ask questions. He was quiet as we walked through the dim corridors up to the upper floors. When we reached an office, there he was, my husband, still in his cleaning uniform, sitting quietly at a desk. The guard told me to play along. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I did as I was told. When I entered, he called out my name like nothing had happened and asked how my day was. I swallowed hard and told him it had been a bad day. Watching him, I realized something heartbreaking. His mind is fractured. He's living in a fantasy, replaying the happy times we had. It's like he's stuck in that past moment, refusing to let go. I couldn't stop crying. He reached out and comforted me gently, but then his expression shifted, as if something darker crept back in. The guard asked me to leave, and I had to step away. Before I left, the guard looked at me with a mix of sadness and anger. The betrayal and the divorce fractured his mind, he told me quietly. Sometimes he thinks everything is okay, that we're still a family, but then the truth hits him. He drowns himself in alcohol to cope. He explained that the only reason my husband still had a job was because one of his juniors from his old corporate position never believed the lies. That person managed to get him the cleaning job in this building. I left feeling hollow. Later, I told my parents the full truth. I also went to our old house one last time to collect the last of my belongings. Before I walked away for good, I looked at the burned wedding album in my hands. It's all I have left, a reminder of everything we lost. Update 7. None of our mutual friends ever reached out to him. I told them the truth, trying to make them understand what really happened, and most of them were horrified. But it didn't change anything. They had already turned their backs on him, and on me. As for my sister, she left town shortly after everything blew up. She moved to another city, ranting on social media, calling everyone traitors for turning their backs on her. But she had to settle out of court. The judge ordered her to pay a considerable sum for the damage she caused, not just to my husband, but to all of us. I don't care about money or pride anymore. All I want is him back. I decided to confront him in person. I tracked down where he buys his liquor and where he's been living. When I showed up at his small, worn-down apartment, the look on his face was like I was a hallucination. For a moment, he didn't believe I was real. Then his mind broke again. He started crying. I hugged him tightly and kept apologizing over and over. I made a mistake. I believed a lie. I'm so sorry. I refused to let go. I needed him to know how sorry I was. He cried too, asking me why I didn't believe him, why everyone had turned their backs on him when all he ever did was love me. I told him I came back because I finally learned the truth. Then I noticed his breathing slow. He'd fallen asleep in my arms. I held him there for a long time, feeling the weight of everything between us, remembering the moments when we were happy, the life we could have had if I hadn't trusted my sister's lies. I don't know how to fix what I did, but I do know one thing. I threw away my happiness for my sister, and now I have to live with that. All I can do is hope he'll let me stay. Update 8. I've been staying with him for days now. The episodes come and go, moments when his fractured mind slips into confusion or despair. I play along, trying to reach him through the fog, holding on to the smallest fragments of who he used to be. It's exhausting and heartbreaking. Sometimes I think I'm making progress. Other times it feels like I'm drowning alongside him. My parents know what I'm doing. They're worried. My lawyer warned me too, told me I need to leave, that this isn't healthy for either of us. But I can't walk away now. Steve found out I was staying with him. He wasn't happy. Then the security guard showed up. Not in uniform this time, but wearing a plain jacket. He looked serious, almost angry at first. But after one look at me and my husband, I could tell he understood what I was trying to do. He's not your typical security guard. He knows more than he lets on. Then he did something I didn't expect. He whispered something to my husband. I could barely catch the words, but the moment he said it, my husband's face twisted in pain. He cried out loud like his brain was about to explode. I demanded to know what the guard had done to him. The guard's voice was calm but heavy. He needs to face his demons. Then he turned to me before leaving and asked, "Do you truly love him?" Without hesitation, I said, "Yes." He looked at me piercingly and asked, "Then why did you believe your sister's lies so easily?" I swallowed hard and replied, "Because she was family." His gaze hardened. "If you hurt him one more time, you and your family will face the consequences." The way he said it made clear he was deadly serious. For hours after that, my husband held his head in his hands, trembling. He even reached for a bottle to drink, but I stopped him. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Eventually, he fell asleep again, and I sat beside him, utterly exhausted physically, emotionally, and mentally. But no matter how tired I am, I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever. Update 9. It's been weeks since that night, the one when the guard whispered something to my husband and everything shifted. Since then, things have changed. I still don't know if it's for the better or worse. My husband is quieter now, more subdued. He doesn't have the emotional outbursts like before, but something's changed in his eyes, like he's there, but far away at the same time. He never once asked me to leave. I've stayed doing what I can. I cook fresh meals for him every day and clean his apartment, hoping some piece of normalcy might bring comfort. The place still feels heavy with pain, but I'm trying. One day while cleaning, I found a picture tucked beneath the nightstand. It was a photo of me taken long before we were ever together. I had almost forgotten about it. He took that picture himself. I was smiling at him. That smile, the one that started everything between us. He had kept it all these years. He doesn't talk much now. Sometimes he stares at the wall in silence for long stretches. Other times he'll suddenly speak about something from the past. A memory, a moment, a joke we once shared, and then clutch his head like it's too much to bear. All I can do in those moments is hold him until he calms down. Some of our old friends told me I should take him to a facility, but I don't have enough money left to do that. I've spent what I had helping him survive. Out of desperation, I called Steve, his lawyer, and asked to meet. We sat down at a coffee shop a couple days later. Steve was professional, sharp as ever, and clearly not happy to see me, but I didn't care. The first thing he asked was, "Why shouldn't I file a restraining order against you right now after what you did to him?" I didn't flinch. I told him the truth, that I was there to support him, that I was trying to atone for my mistakes, that I believed my sister because she was family. He leaned forward, cold and direct. And what was he then? He was your husband. He was family too. I know, I said quietly. I should have listened to him, but I didn't. I was overwhelmed, confused. Steve didn't soften. If you really loved him, you should have at least left him with his dignity. But you didn't. You left him with nothing, not even his mind. I couldn't respond, because he was right. I did take everything from him, and now all I'm trying to do is salvage what's left. I told Steve, I don't care what you think of me. I just want to bring him back. Not for me, even if he never stays with me again. I want him to move forward. I want him to heal. He stared at me for a long time. Then I told him about the guard. About how ever since that night, my husband seems to be in pain every time he remembers the past. I told him what the guard said. He needed to face his demons. To my surprise, Steve smiled faintly. Then the guard helped him, he said. He's helping him find his way back. He leaned back and finally said, "All right, I'll help, but under conditions." I agreed before he could even list them. He said he'll be in touch in the next few days with the details. I don't know what comes next, but I'll take anything, any chance if it means helping the man I destroyed find his way home. Update 10. The guard is gone now. He quietly left the office building where my husband worked. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. He didn't say a word to me, and I didn't expect him to, but I'll never forget what he did. Without him, I don't think my husband would have even made it this far. Steve, however, stayed involved. He spoke privately with my husband what they talked about. I don't know, but I'm grateful. Even if my husband doesn't fully understand it yet, I'm thankful that not everyone abandoned him like I did. Like our so-called friends did. Like my family did. Right now, he's still not capable of making decisions for himself. It feels like his sanity was hanging by a thread for years, and my return, after everything, broke that last thread. But somehow, despite it all, I became his anchor to what's left of reality. The irony isn't lost on me. The woman he loved, the one who destroyed him, is now the only thing keeping him tethered. Steve helped arrange a call with my husband's brother, who lives overseas. He was livid. He held nothing back, furious at me, my family, our friends, the entire chain of betrayal. But in the end, through Steve's mediation, he reluctantly agreed to let me stay with them for now, at least while my husband is being treated. Steve also made sure my husband got the care he so desperately needed. He told me he had tried before, had begged him to seek help, but my husband would lash out or shut down. They never forced it, but now he's letting them help. His condition is still delicate. Sometimes he'll speak like the man I once knew. Talk about a memory. Ask me something small and sweet, and then he'll freeze. Hold his head in his hands like it's all crashing down again. Like remembering hurts more than forgetting. But I see it. I see him trying to come back. And I hold on to that. My parents asked to visit. Some of our former friends did too. Steve shut them all down hard. He warned them that any interference, even posting about my husband online, could result in legal consequences. He's been relentless in protecting him more than anyone else ever was. Some of the therapy sessions have gone well. Progress is slow, painful, but it's there. Since I'm legally no longer his wife, I only get updates through Steve. He keeps me informed, but everything has to go through him. I also signed a legal agreement that ensures my husband's safety and well-being. If I interfere in any way emotionally, physically, or otherwise, I'll be removed from his life immediately. There were more terms, but I didn't hesitate to sign. As for the car, house, and the rest of what I took another lawyer at Steve's firm is handling that process. Recently, I sat in a meeting with Steve and my husband's psychiatrist. The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. He said my husband's mind is walking a tightrope caught between the world he built to survive the pain and the real world he no longer knows how to live in. They don't want to medicate him unless absolutely necessary. Instead, they gave me tasks, ways I could support him gently and try to ease him back. Then the psychiatrist asked if I was sure I wanted to take on the role of caretaker because this could take years, with no guarantee of recovery. He also advised me to start therapy myself. I told them my husband is the priority now. I owe him that. After everything I did, this is the least I can do. I admitted I don't have the money for therapy. Not even one session. Steve looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "My firm will cover it, at least until he stabilizes." I thanked him, and that's when he said it. "You're not thanking me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for my friend." I nodded. I didn't argue. I knew it was true. Before the meeting ended, I asked Steve about the security guard, the one who had helped him, who had seen him at his worst and still stood by him. Steve looked at me, thoughtful for a moment, then simply said, "He's a friend too." That's all he gave me. But the way he said it made it clear. The guard wasn't just a random man in uniform. He knew more than he let on. And he cared. I don't know what comes next. I just know I'll be here walking beside the man I broke, holding what's left, and hoping that piece by piece, we can begin to rebuild what I shattered. Update 11. It's been a couple of years now. My husband is better, not fully whole, not the same man he used to be, but he's healing. Every day he moves a little closer to the version of himself that was buried beneath the weight of betrayal and heartbreak. It's slow, and some days are harder than others, but the light in his eyes stays longer now. Clearer. The hardest part was when he decided to stop drinking. It nearly destroyed him. The withdrawal hit like a storm, violent, unforgiving. We had to rush him to the emergency room. He was trembling, sweating, barely coherent. Doctors offered medication to ease the symptoms, but he refused. Flat out. He was determined to face it. I'll never forget the way he looked at me in that hospital bed, eyes full of pain, longing, sadness, and even anger. All of it aimed inward, like he was punishing himself for surviving. That night, I sat by his side as he shook through every minute, and eventually exhaustion pulled him under. He never once raised his voice at me. Not once since the day I found him in that lobby. Not even in that state. I stepped out of the hospital room for a moment to get something to drink. The hallway was quiet, dimly lit in that late-night way hospitals always are. That's when I saw Steve standing a few feet away, speaking to someone. There was something familiar about the man he was talking to. Tall, fit, and composed. I couldn't see his face, but he carried himself with a calm intensity I recognized but couldn't place. As I moved toward them, the man turned and walked away swiftly, like he didn't want to be seen. I asked Steve who he was. All he said was, "He's a friend." Then I noticed a woman standing behind the man 2 inches shorter, long black hair, wearing a white uniform blouse and a flowing green skirt. She looked beautiful and sad. I blinked. She was gone. I chalked it up to exhaustion, but I still think about them. A few days later, my husband had stabilized enough for us to return to our marital home. The decision came with careful discussion and the approval of his psychiatrist. Coming back felt surreal. To me, the house was full of ghosts of laughter and tears, of love and betrayal. But to him, it was familiar, safe. He lit up like he never left. He even greeted the neighbors as if no time had passed. I'd spoken to them beforehand, explained the truth, my mistakes, the years of healing. They understood. They welcomed him, gently. It almost felt like the beginning again. Every morning I cooked him breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee, simple, familiar things. And we talked. Just small conversations, nothing deep. I didn't pry, I didn't force anything. I just wanted to be present. Steady. I'd smile, ask about his sleep, or talk about things around the house. He didn't always respond with full clarity, but sometimes he'd smile back. And those moments meant everything. I've kept my distance from my parents and old friends. My parents tried to reconnect, but I couldn't. I'm not ready, and I don't think they are either. Some of the people who once smiled with me while believing my sister's lies now avoid my eyes entirely. As for my sister, she lashes out online every few months. Bitter rants, blaming everyone. Last I heard, she's been jumping from one relationship to the next, never settling, never staying. Maybe that's her punishment. Maybe not. I don't care anymore. Steve's been there throughout all of it. Quiet, firm, relentless in his protection of my husband, and generous. He's helped us financially during recovery, covering expenses I couldn't. I know he's doing it for his friend, not for me. He's never said otherwise. And I wouldn't expect him to. Then something happened recently. Every night after dinner, I'd wait for my husband to fall asleep before quietly retreating to the guest room. I never wanted to cross that line. I didn't want to assume anything, didn't want to push. But one night he looked at me and said, "It's time for bed." And he waited. I froze, unsure, but nodded. That night, after years, we lay side by side again. He fell asleep first. His face looked peaceful. He's still thin, but he's gaining weight again. And then, as he slept, he reached out and held me just like he used to. I cried until sleep took me too. The next morning, for the first time, he woke up before me. I walked into the kitchen to find him cooking breakfast, making coffee, like it was any ordinary morning. He kissed me on the cheek, smiled gently. Like nothing had happened. Like the world hadn't burned between us. For a few heartbeats, I saw him the man I married, the man I ruined, the man I still love. It didn't matter if he was in his own world or if the two realities, the painful past and the healing present, were finally merging. What mattered is he's coming back. And I'll be here no matter how long the journey takes. Update 12. I don't even know how she found out. My sister. Somehow she learned that I was back with my husband. Maybe someone posted something. Maybe she was just watching. Waiting, I don't know. But she came. She showed up unannounced. It was a little after sunset when the doorbell rang. My husband opened it and there she was. Drunk. The moment he unlocked the door, she shoved past him and stormed into the house like she still belonged in our lives. The air turned electric heavy, dangerous. She started yelling almost immediately, slurring, mocking. I tried to calm her down to get her to leave, but she kept escalating. When I stepped between her and my husband, she laughed and called me pathetic. I looked at him, and I saw it. The moment he realized who was standing in front of him, his eyes widened in horror, and then he just froze, like the world stopped turning. His hand went to his head, his breathing became erratic, and he stumbled back. She kept laughing. She laughed at both of us, mocked me for crawling back to him, mocked him for taking me in. And then she said it like a dagger to the chest. She burned the wedding album, remember? She celebrated your divorce like a victory. He just stood there, hand pressed to his skull like it was splitting apart from the inside. The pain on his face was unbearable. I tried to push her out, but she resisted, shoving me back and knocking over a lamp, throwing cushions across the room, screaming nonsense. Thankfully, a neighbor had seen her car parked on the lawn and called the police. They came fast. She was still shouting, still laughing. It took both officers to restrain her. They dragged her out of the house in handcuffs, kicking and cursing. The neighbors watched in stunned silence. And then it happened. My husband, who had stood frozen in shock, suddenly stumbled toward the hallway and locked himself inside our bedroom. I tried knocking, calling for him, but there was no response. Steve arrived shortly after. He must have flown down the street because he was there within minutes. He took one look at the chaos in the living room, at me trembling near the door, and he snapped into action. He was furious, at the situation, at my sister, at everything that had just unraveled. But he didn't yell. He walked up to me, his voice low and sharp. "I'm calling the psychiatrist, and I think you should leave." I was about to argue, to tell him I couldn't leave him like this, but before I could say a word, the bedroom door creaked open. And there he stood. Unsteady, his face pale, confused, and somewhere between heartbreak and clarity. "Why, are you telling my wife to leave?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Steve's expression shifted instantly from frustration to heartbreak. My husband took one step forward, then another, and collapsed. He passed out. We rushed him to the hospital. The doctor said the mental and emotional trauma had pushed him past his limit. He was sedated for rest and stabilization. It was the only way to calm his nervous system. My parents found out what happened through the police report. They were horrified, completely blindsided. They didn't even know my sister had returned. My father hasn't spoken since, and my mother cried on the phone, begging to know how he was. But I couldn't offer anything more than what little the doctors said. Steve doesn't know what to say anymore." He stood beside me in the hospital waiting room, arms crossed, quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Do you think you're helping? Or hurting?" I didn't have an answer. Not one I could say out loud. All I know is that we were doing better, he was doing better. And in one night, it all came crashing down. I don't know if I should stay. I don't know if I should go. And Steve doesn't know either. Update 13. He came back. The guard. It was late, maybe past midnight. The hospital hallways were quiet, and I had just come back from stepping outside for some air when I saw them through the room window. My husband was awake, really awake, and sitting up in bed for the first time since everything fell apart. And across from him sat him. The guard. Wearing his uniform again. He looked bigger than before. A bit older, heavier, but calm, like a man who had carried too much for too long and finally set some of it down. They were talking, quietly, slowly, and I didn't dare enter. I just stood there and watched from a distance. My husband seemed focused, listening, and then just as quickly his body relaxed and his eyes drifted shut. He fell asleep again. That was when the guard stepped out and saw me. He didn't look surprised to see me, just nodded and walked over. Up close, something about him stirred something deep in me, something familiar, but I still couldn't place it. He spoke gently. "Thank you for helping him." I didn't know what to say. I could barely look him in the eyes, but he didn't come with judgment. There was no resentment in his tone, just calm. He went on, telling me that before I ever came back all those years ago when I found my husband in that lobby, they were already trying to get him help. That they knew he was slipping, that something in him was breaking, but they didn't want to force it. He wasn't ready back then. They had hoped he would come to it on his own. I asked him if he was angry at me. He shook his head. "No, I'm just protective of my friend, that's all." We talked a little more, about my husband, about what had been lost. And then the guard looked away toward the hospital room, and for the first time, I saw something shift in him. He looked lighter than when I last saw him in our old apartment, back when he told me my husband needed to face his demons. There was less weight on him now. Before he left, he turned to me and said, "He'll want to talk to you when he wakes up." I asked him what he meant. His answer was cryptic, almost knowing. "It's time." And with that, he walked away down the hallway without another word. It was late. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, and the quiet of the hospital felt almost like a dream. Then I saw her again, the girl from before. Same long black hair, same white blouse and flowing green skirt. Only this time, she wasn't looking at me. She stood near the nurse's station, gazing at the guard as he walked away. Her expression had changed, no longer sad, but soft, calm, maybe even peaceful. I blinked. She was gone. Was I imagining things? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, I decided it was time to rest. I curled up on the visitor's chair near my husband's bed and let the quiet wash over me. Whatever comes next, it feels like something is finally about to begin again. Update 14. He's back. It was still early when I woke up in the hospital room, sunlight barely bleeding through the edges of the window blinds. I had fallen asleep sitting in the chair, head resting lightly on the bed beside him. and then I felt the gentle stroke of his fingers in my hair. I lifted my head, and there he was, sitting upright, quietly watching me. I don't know how long he'd been like that. His eyes weren't vacant anymore. They were clear. Present. Him. I said his name in a whisper. He smiled. And I broke. I sobbed uncontrollably, not the soft kind, but deep, shuddering cries I couldn't hold back. The kind that spills from a place too broken to hide. Nurses rushed in, worried something was wrong, but I just held his hand and wept. I kept apologizing over and over. I didn't believe you. I'm so sorry. He held my hand tighter. Later that day, Steve arrived, and for the first time since everything happened, he cried too. Not a lot. Not loud, just a few quiet tears. But for someone like Steve, it meant everything. My husband looked at both of us and said calmly, "We've got a lot to talk about." I knew exactly what he meant, and I nodded. Later, his psychiatrist came in and explained what happened. The confrontation with my sister, her yelling, her mocking, the sheer chaos had forced something to snap, but not in the way we feared. It broke through the last wall in his mind. The psychiatrist called it an emotional detonator, something that finally pushed him to face the buried trauma head-on. And somehow, it brought him back. When we returned home, it felt different than the last time. There was still quiet, still uncertainty, but this time I knew he was truly present. He looked at the rooms like he was seeing them again for the first time, as though he was reconnecting with the space we once shared. That night, I began to pack my things. My task was done. He was healing. He was back. I had told myself from the start once that happened, I would leave. I had no right to stay. But then, as I was folding my clothes, he stopped me. He led me gently to the kitchen. "Help me cook?" he asked. I nodded. Just like before, I helped prep the ingredients, washed the vegetables, laid them out like I used to. Then I sat down and watched him cook. It was like muscle memory, that rhythm from the past. Only this time, there was a heaviness in the air that hadn't existed back then. We didn't speak for a while. Then he finally did. It felt like I was in a daze all those years, lost in a fog, caught between a dream and a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I listened quietly. I kept going through the motions, hoping something would pull me back, and all I felt was that pain, the betrayal from the only woman I ever truly loved. I couldn't say anything. "But you came back," he said, and somehow that part of me held on. He served the food. We ate in silence, the way we used to, but this time it was heavier and more meaningful. When the meal was over, I stood up and told him I should go. I turned to grab my bag, but before I could, he gently caught my hand. "You don't have to go." I looked at him. "Why?" He took a deep breath, then he looked me in the eyes. "Because I'm an idiot who still loves you. Even after everything, even after what you did, even knowing how close you were to your sister, I still..." He stopped, struggled, then added softly, "I don't know if I've forgiven you. I really don't. But I want to try. I want you here. Not because I need you, but because maybe we both deserve to start again." I was speechless. Then he asked me about the wedding album. I nodded, went to the closet, and brought out the metal box, the scorched, charred remains. He opened it, carefully turned the brittle, half-burned pages. His eyes scanned the old photos, what was left of them. He didn't say much, just looked for a long time. Then, finally, "Maybe someday," he whispered, "we can make new memories. I don't know if we'll ever truly go back to what we were. But maybe, just maybe, we can go forward. Together. Final update." It's been a few more years since he came back to me. There were more quiet battles along the way, more nights spent facing the damage I caused and learning how to help him heal, but we fought through them. Together. And this time, it was different. Stronger. Real. We remarried in a small ceremony. No extended family. No former friends. Just us and the few people who never turned their backs on him when the world, including me, did. Steve stood by his side, as he always had. His unwavering friend, his advocate, and somehow, even after everything, someone who helped me be part of his recovery. And the guard was there too. The man who always showed up when it mattered most in the lobby, at the apartment, at the hospital. He wasn't in the shadows anymore. That day, he stood beside us in the light. Since then, we've been building a life together, slow, gentle, imperfect. We've created new memories, real ones, laughter over burnt toast, walks on quiet streets, conversations that begin in silence. Sometimes he still pauses mid-thought and looks far away. And when he does, I know a part of the past still echoes. But we are here. He is here. And now, we're expecting our first child. He cried when I told him, held me so tight I could feel the ache of fear, of hope, of finally having something to look forward to again. For the first time in years, I saw a spark return to his eyes. As for my parents, he forgave them in the quiet way only he could, but the distance remains, as does the silence from old friends who once swore they cared. And my sister. She was charged nothing serious, but enough to mark the truth. She was released and vanished. I don't expect to ever see her again. I loved her once, but I can't forgive her. Not for what she did to him. Not for what she did to us. And then, there was her. The girl I kept seeing in the hospital hallway late at night, silent, distant, and always just out of reach. She had long black hair, wore a white blouse and a green skirt, and carried a sadness that lingered even when she disappeared. At the time, I didn't know who she was. I didn't understand why she felt so familiar, why every glimpse of her left a weight in my chest. But later, I met someone else. A woman standing beside the guard, quiet, calm, and steady. Her presence was grounding, and when I looked at her, I felt that same eerie familiarity. Because she looked so much like the girl from the hospital, almost identical but not the same. They were like reflections in two different mirrors, one distant, like a memory barely holding on, the other real, present, living. I never asked. I didn't need to. Whatever connection they had, whatever story they shared, it was theirs, and they helped bring him back, piece by piece. And for that, I will always be grateful. I thank the guard for everything, for the care, the warnings, the moments where he stepped in and protected the man I nearly destroyed.
What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama, shocking betrayals, and the revenge stories you won't believe.